house. Are you here?
Hey there, boys and girls. Welcome to this week's episode of Hollow Weekly. Nick and George here with Personal Shopper.
Indeed.
Man, I am kind of mad I waited this... You know what? No, I'm not. I'm glad I saw it when I did. There was a reason for that. This movie just creeped in.
Yeah, it worked out. I think you liked the experience this way. Because I think you kept hearing about it, and then you were like... fine, but usually when you keep hearing about something and you watch it, it's sort of disappointing. So you got to have the experience of hearing about it.
Luckily, no one explained it clearly. So normally people
no one can.
Yeah, no one. Usually they go into depth and they give you the nitty gritty. But right. I've heard a lot about this, but at the same time, I know nothing about it. So I kind of got to go in with a blank slate, which was pretty fun.
That's super interesting. That's an interesting dynamic.
Yeah.
Because you're right. I when I was telling you about it, I'm sure I didn't say anything specific about it. I remember I was telling you that I loved it. I remember we did an episode where I put it like one of my top 5 of the year, if not higher, for the horror movies of the year. And,
I get it.
And then you were like, yeah, but what happens? And I'm like, it's a ghost movie.
Yeah, it's just but I was telling you this because we were talking about this yesterday. I'll just say, for the people who are on the fence on Personal Shopper,
yes,
if you saw Crimson Peak and you're kind of disappointed, watch this, because this is a really effective ghost movie.
That's such an interesting association.
But
they're both like quiet, atmospheric horror, sort of.
Yeah, it's sort of I would honestly do it as like a double bill. I think that would work. There's this weird isolation. What did I say yesterday? It was the movie. I was feeling emotionally seasick. Mm-hmm. That's how this movie makes you feel. It does weird shit to you.
Such a good way to describe the feeling of it. So that would be Crimson Shopper or Personal Peak.
No. I saw that on Cinemax late at night one time.
Good double bill.
Personal Crimson.
So the reason I really wanted to approach this now is that this movie deals with isolation and grief, and a couple of things are happening. Obviously, we're all dealing with isolation, and
Orange County.
No, true. They're going to deal with it in a different way. But the thing is that it's not. As we're recording this, Shudder had released the movie Host. It became a big deal, deservedly so. It's a great movie, and then when I was looking back on it, and then we just watched Personal Shopper, I was like, all right, so Host is now becoming sort of legendary for catching the zeitgeist, this period of time. What does it feel like? Whatever. But I felt like they were a really close-knit group of friends. So the movie dealt with isolation. You got to deal with each other digitally via Zoom, and it's not the same or whatever. But for the theme of isolation, Personal Shopper did a much, much better job of conveying it, and it comes way earlier, right? And then Hereditary sort of re-inaugurated the grief wave of horror, where grief and trauma are Babadook too.
I like Grief Wave. That's a cool fucking title for movies.
Better than Personal Peak. That's good. It unleashed this wave of movies with trauma and whatever. And for my money, I think Personal Shopper is just the quiet sister of Hereditary. So
that's a great way to put it. I also thought about it, especially with the opening scene. I'm like, this is the best Haunted Mansion movie.
Yeah, that's right. Those effects really you took them as very Haunted Mansion looking.
Dude,
I didn't take it like that at all. To me, they were super creepy because it was one of the first times in a modern movie where I felt like ghosts were depicted kind of the way I would expect them to look.
Yeah.
Right? But and that's not how Haunted Mansion is. I don't expect ghosts to look like Haunted Mansion. So somehow they get to look like Haunted Mansion ghosts, but also look like the way I think ghosts look. Even though those two things are not the same, I don't know how this movie did it.
I don't know why it gave me Haunted Mansion. I think it was because it was just an old dark mansion.
It was in a 2-level room with smoky ghosts.
Oh, it felt like a mansion to me though.
True.
It just felt big. It felt like, there's that creepy openness when you're on the Haunted Mansion, where it's you're not claustrophobic or something like that. Like, it's not like the walls are setting in. Like, you get to
Right.
observe everything, but while you're observing everything, you're kind of freaking yourself out.
Yep.
Because you're constantly like looking at little details and trying to catch things. And I was doing that with Personal Shopper. I was
Yep.
like, is that really a shadow?
Yep.
Is that this? And then that opening scene alone, like, I think if you're on the fence, just check out the opening scene. Like, I think that's pretty effective. Like, that got me kind of from the get.
Because I think what a lot of people who don't even think this movie's a horror movie or don't,
Which is kind of delusional.
yeah, no, it's not kind of, it's definitely delusional. But also, it's I think they think of it as a really slow burn, and it is. I'm not gonna lie.
I won't disagree on that.
But I think I think there are some legitimately great either jump scare sort of sequences or like very effective fright sequences, a la the closest thing I can think of is the ball and the changeling, bouncing down the stairs. There's sequences in this movie that are that good, and there's more than one of them, right?
Yeah.
And they're spaced out where I feel like the movie is just every time you think, oh, maybe it's going a little too slow, something good happens, right? So I think
The
it's
pacing is off the charts good.
great.
I like there even we were talking yesterday, like you felt like you feared the or the texting sequence because it went on too long. But then you said every time it comes around and you never like seem to care. The first time watching it, I didn't even like really give a shit because in the film she's getting these texts and you don't know if who it's from.
Right.
Presumably her dead brother, Spirit.
Wait, okay, so hold
This is where we should-
hold that thought for a second. So basically what's happening is that Kristen Stewart's playing a personal shopper. She has just lost her twin brother. They both are basically consider themselves mediums. So they have like a talent for being psychic and talking to the dead or sensing the dead and whatnot. They have day jobs too, because apparently that doesn't pay well. or a la like Dead Zone, it takes a toll, so you don't use it, right? So she's trying to contact her brother, and meanwhile she's trying to live her life where there's not much happening, to be honest. She has a distant boyfriend who's somewhere way far away.
Yeah.
And then she gets involved with the person she's doing the shopping for, a celebrity. She has a boyfriend who becomes sort of like a sinister figure in this, and is likely the person doing the text. By the way, we're gonna have a lot of spoilers or whatever. So, but you don't know at the time when she's doing the texting sequence. She thinks it's either her dead brother because he promised to send her a sign from the afterlife after he died. Weird sign would be text chains, but whatever. She thinks it's possible it's
Who's his
her
carrier?
brother, or she doesn't figure this out yet, but it's definitely the celebrity's boyfriend who is trying to frame her for the murder he's about to do. Right. Okay, so this
Yeah.
texting sequence goes on for a while.
Never bumped though.
Right.
Like because of the fact that like they float the idea that it could be her brother makes every message kind of interesting.
Right.
Like if you knew it was fucking what the boyfriend, you're like, what's his name, Ian or
Ingo.
Ingo?
Yep.
It was not Ingo. If I knew for that from the start, I wouldn't give a shit. I'm like, she's just being weird.
Yeah, well, you're right. I mean, the thing is also, and this is where sort of the pandemic element comes in. When you think about her life, it looks like she's living a working life, like a sort of weird one. There's not, personal shopper can't be like one of the number one jobs in the world, but it's a job. It's a job people do, and so, and she obviously is not having fun doing it. So it's like every job.
Yeah.
So she's, I don't know. The weird thing is, it looks like she's going about a normal life, but if you think about it, every time she shows up where Kira's supposed to be, she's not there. So she's alone most of the time. And then every time she's doing an interaction where she's picking something up, she's doing one-on-one interactions, but sort of at a distance, and then she's just out of there. Like, she's living her chances of catching COVID just with no adjustments to her lifestyle are pretty small.
The only thing she says to other people is, "No, she wouldn't like that." Oh yeah, get that leather jacket. Like, that's it.
Right? That's all she's doing. But it's kind of amazing that this movie focused in on someone who's really being buffeted by grief and in a bad way, and because she doesn't have a lot of energy, she's basically just doing her job and getting through the rest of her day, sort of, while she's trying to figure things out. And her lifestyle feels a lot like the one our lifestyles have become.
Yeah.
Right? So
Totally,
which is also weird that the movie sort of, when you think about isolation, it can sort of predict when a historical event happens that requires isolation. an artist who makes something about isolation that's really good is sort of predicting how it's going to go. It's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if they, because when did Personal Shopper come out?
2016 or something.
So it's fairly recent. So the only difference, like if they made it today, was like there'd be more apps.
There'd be, yeah, and masks. That's all. That's all. Right.
That's it.
That's all.
A lot more Grubhub.
That's all. Yeah.
I will say this though, watching this movie made me want to be like mega rich and have a personal shopper. Like I was just thinking to myself, like this movie, like it's not like super glossy or glamorous, but like I saw myself being like, man, it'd be kind of nice. Like you come home, you got like a new jacket,
A furnished closet.
yeah, like new
yeah,
shit.
totally.
I was like, man, that'd be nice. How great would that be?
Yeah, obviously it would be awesome. But I mean, it's awesome for Kira, right? Until she's dead.
Well, yeah, she ends up,
Right.
she ends up getting it.
So go ahead.
No, just the first interaction, because a lot of these films, like if they're slow burns, there's usually like how many like slow burns have you seen that have had like just extraordinary dialogue? Like
Quite a few.
That's a common trait for slow burns.
Yeah,
that
I think people who are doing slow burn movies where you're spending, longer time with less happening on the screen know they have to fill it with something.
Oh, you know what I was thinking of? I was thinking of Mumblecore.
Yeah, well, no. No.
Well, okay. At any rate,
Yeah.
the dialogue, the conversations were really good. And I thought,
Yes.
I thought Kristen Stewart's character and the boyfriend, that first interaction, it was like kind of cheesy, the questions like they were asking each other, but like somehow like it played off really cool. I don't know how to describe it. Like it just kind of had this like I don't know, this like art housey swagger to it, but like it wasn't like super pretentious. And I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, that's the thing is, I think because Kristen Stewart, can we just get this out of the way? Kristen Stewart's an amazing actress. Everyone
I'll
can
back
just
that up.
Go fuck off or whatever. However they talk about like whatever. And the thing is, she carried the Twilight series. Let's be honest, right?
Yeah.
So then here, she's got this whole movie lives or dies on whether she can pull off this performance, because nothing else is really happening in this movie but her character. Right? It's all kind of revolving around her character. This movie feels a lot like Repulsion, the Roman Polanski movie, where it's all centered around the one character, right? And there's another reason why it's a lot like the movie too, which we'll get to when we get to the spoilers at the end. But she feels like she's been rubbed down to like where her wires are exposed, right?
Yeah,
like she's
yeah.
pretty beaten down. She's taking the death of her twin brother really hard. She's not having a great time in her life. And I think because she's in that position, every time the movie tries to get a little soaring with like elaborate dialogue that would be too art housey, she kind of just is like runs out of energy in the conversation, and then the scene ends. So it's like perfect that she's like
perfect.
that.
Yeah, towards the end of that conversation, she just kind of like gets real short, and then like, okay, I'm gonna go now. Bye.
Right, she's like a
bounces.
splash of whiskey in the coffee. Like it's not like every scene she's in, she's not gonna let the scene get out of hand by getting too pretentious, because she's just being too real at the time, right? So, as a matter of fact, one of the things that you and I talked about that I found fascinating about this movie was, and I wish we had recorded this in real time,
I know.
because
I thought about just pulling out my phone and just recording it. And
Right.
next time we do that, because we do that all the fucking time when we're
we
talking
should
and we're
just
like, this should be on the show.
and drop that in.
Yeah, for
and
now on.
pull it.
Okay, for now on, editing for the people listening. If we have such a fire ass conversation, you better believe some iPhone quality audio
It's
is
coming
going to be
in.
dropped in.
It's getting dropped. It's getting parachuted in the middle of the. But the thing is, for anyone who's seen Personal Shopper who happens to be listening to this, well, first of all, you're my people, because I listen to podcasts about movies I've already seen all the time. So hi. And then second thing is, if you've seen Personal Shopper or you watch it and then come back and listen to this, think to yourself, like, what are the jobs that the characters in this movie are doing, right? Because it seems like a normal world where you don't bump on it, you don't notice it at all, right? But when you go back and you think, you're like, what are these characters' jobs? What is Ingo doing? What does Kira do? Like, we know she's a celebrity, but why? Like, why is she famous? Is it musical? Is it acting? Is it model? What are these jobs? Like, her distant boyfriend who's off in the Himalayas or wherever he is coding. Like, we know he codes, but he's on a mountain in the middle of nowhere, right? So that doesn't make a lot of sense, right? And then she's meeting like her brother's wife, the widow. Well, I don't know her job. Then the wife finds a new boyfriend immediately, which is super weird.
It's like 3 months.
Right, and I have a thought on that. So like, but we don't know what he does. He talks like he's like a spiritual therapist or something.
Oh
Like
my
weird.
God, yeah.
Like we don't know what any of these people
heard that
do.
guy at Whole Foods.
We don't even know what her dead brother did. We know he's a medium. We know he works with the one guy. So when you go back and you look, everyone's got jobs, but you don't know what any of those jobs are. Right? It's like a reverse Truman Show. You're in a world where you're watching, but you're being given no information, right? So it leads to this movie having a really creepy, hollow feel, and you can't identify why. But I think there's more of that than I caught, and that's why I think this movie really grows with rewatching, right? Like I had a way better time on the second watch than the first.
Yeah, I think it's got those weird like David Lynch type of like. You know, some things mean more than the other, and you actually brought up some more fan theories that I thought was pretty
right. Well, we'll get to the end when you're when you don't have nothing else to say about the body of it, because the end is where the fan theories really come in.
That blew my mind because I enjoyed the. Well, first of all, let me tell a little
Yes.
story about everyone.
Please.
This movie scared me, like legit. Like I had to grab a blanket. You know, and I was like, oh, I feel protected now. I got my fucking blanket. Like, ghosts ain't gonna bother me. And I even had the chair next to me, and Gatsby was sitting there, and I was like, ooh, cats like fuck with ghosts. So, like, I'm super protected.
Like a mongoose against the cobra.
Yeah, exactly like that. But like, the opening scene kind of spooked me, or it really spooked me,
Yep.
and it's like really hollow. Like, she's also kind of like Kristen Stewart's also kind of like super into like finding the sign, which is kind of creepy in itself.
Yep.
So like, I was spooked out by it. The ghost scene scared me. The murder scene, which spoilers, like that really frightened me. And the ending I thought was kind of spooky. But like I caught myself at the end of the night, like kind of like having like the willies, like you know, like you can feel some shit shooting up and down your spine. Like it's an effective ghost movie. But like here's the thing, like, we were talking, like we want to tell people it's a good scary ghost movie, but we can't tell you it's a good scary ghost movie because we don't want to ruin the. We were talking about expectations.
We don't want to set expectations too high for the scares, but I think it's a legitimately, it disturbed me. The first time I watched it, I was unnerved by this movie, right? And I couldn't get out of my head. There's one particular moment that I can't get out of my head still, right? So like, it's a bizarre movie that way. It's effective the way like the Mulholland Drive diner jump scare scene.
What's the scene you still can't get out of your head?
The ghost going in and out of the door of the hotel.
Yeah,
because it's in the wrong order. So let me set this up so that we can get to the end. But let me just set up the thing real quick, because first of all, I can only think of one other movie where the entire plot turns on when a person dies and promises to send a sign from the afterlife to a relative. Like the only movie I've seen is The Ninth Configuration, which, by the way, was written by William Peter Blatty of Exorcist fame. So I feel like this kind of mindset to these movies, because this movie feels very Exorcist 3 to me, right? Like it's that kind of disturbing, right?
It's like
it's
the
less
floaty
horror
spiritual.
Totally. And like you can tell it's got meaning to it, and like, but it's not overdone, and you really believe in the people believing in what they're trying to accomplish, which is, like it has all that going on. So basically what happens here is, and this is massive spoilers, so you walk away and then come back after you watched it. But the end sequence plays out where Kristen Stewart's being set up for a murder and a theft of highly valuable Cartier jewelry. And she goes to meet Ingo, presumably. We know it is because we see it. And then they go to a hotel room. He gave her the address to it. And then we don't see what happens in that room. We know he's trying to set her up to take the fall for the murder of the celebrity. We know he has every reason to want to harm her or murder her or whatever. She doesn't seem particularly aware she's in danger. She's just going there, right? So it looked like that was going to come out badly for her. But the next thing we see is the camera leaves the room, and then we see, I think it's not surveillance camera, but it looks like surveillance camera footage. We see the door, we see a figure. We don't see anything. A force.
Yeah, it matches. I think it matches the shot of Ingo coming in.
Yes, exactly. So it's this force going through the lobby of the hotel and out the automatic doors.
And like what's weird is like there's nothing on frame, but like you kind of feel
Right.
whatever, you feel some kind of force moving through the frame.
Right.
Like
You're not seeing anything, but your brain feels like it's like seeing a blur or an outline. It's not there. Right?
Yeah, but like you're like to me, I was like, wait, did I see something go through there?
Yep.
And I guarantee there's nothing on
No,
the frame. Like
totally.
but like my brain was like, you definitely saw it.
Absolutely.
ghost
Right.
movie.
Right. Exactly. So, and then we see Ingo leave the room, and he looks fine. Doesn't look like he's been in a fight. Doesn't look like covered in blood. Like whatever. Well, but that makes sense. No murderer doesn't stroll out of a room like whatever. And then he goes down the exact same route, like, through the exact same doors, and the doors do the exact same thing when the invisible thing goes through it. And then as soon as he steps out of the hotel, he's arrested, and he shoots. And I don't know I think he's wounded and captured because he confesses to everything, so he's definitely not killed there, right?
Right.
So then Kristen Stewart goes off. She encounters her dead brother for real, but she doesn't know it. And then she goes to meet her boyfriend wherever he is, in some remote Oman maybe, or some place in the Middle East. And they're on a mountain, and then we'll talk about the very, very end in a second. Because I had to get you there to explain to you that the scene that I never could get out of my head from this movie is the ghost leaving the hotel room, because it's in the wrong order.
It feels
It's
weird.
in the wrong order. That's the problem. Is the thing that makes sense is that they go into the room, and then Ingo leaves the room and goes out and gets arrested, and the ghost leaves the room after and watches it happen. Right? That's what makes sense. It doesn't make sense for the ghost to leave the room first and then Ingo second. Like, why is the ghost leaving the room?
Call 911.
Right. Well, yeah, because Ingo gets arrested out where the ghost is standing. But did the ghost have some ability to make that happen? Right.
They
like,
don't
that's
even nothing.
Well, I know what happens now. I can fully explain it. But so this is it's depressing that I figured this out, but I figured this out.
I'm excited.
I've solved this movie, so like that's no problem. But for the longest time I couldn't get out of my head because it's just in the wrong order, and so it makes the visual so haunting. And like this movie's, it feels like a no closure movie. Although now that I figured out it's total closure, but like it felt like a no closure movie. So there's a lot going on there, and that scene just messed with me. I just thought of it. I was like, I need to know, like, was that Kristen Stewart's ghost? Did she get killed in the hotel room? Is that
That's what you told me
is that
first.
Lewis, the brother, right? Like,
Yeah.
what is that force that came out of that room?
What is it?
Do you want the explanation now?
Yeah.
Because okay. Is there before I do it, because I feel like I've been talking for a bit. Is there a scene from this movie that you think will stick with you, like that'll creep you out?
The
later,
murder
that'll
scene
pop up?
will creep me out,
Okay.
but more than anything, the sound design in this movie.
Ah.
Like, I'm really, really like upset that the sound bar didn't come in on time, because we just before recording this tested it out with Jurassic Park, and we have some like rear wireless speakers coming in, so like it's going to really up the movie night. I'm really excited. But the sound design in this movie is fucking crazy good. Like, you could honestly watch this movie with like blind. Like, you could just put, it's like you could listen to this like going to bed, and it would be just as scary as like an audiobook like type of thing. Like, it also has a lot of those David Lynch electricity type of noises. So like whenever you hear like some buzzing, some shit's about to go down. So it's sort of,
that's cool.
That's sort of like their theme, like, like their donna. I thought that was really effective, and it also kept me on my toes the whole time, because this movie is really quiet. So when a sound effect comes in, you're like, oh, okay, this is gonna get real now. This is about, I don't know how it's gonna get real.
That's interesting.
And it always kept me on
What
my
about
toes.
the Lewis in the background dropping the glass scene? I mean,
that scene.
That scene stuck with me for a while too.
Dude, like, honestly, like you could feel like the air gets sucked out of the room, because it's just like the frame like hangs on Kristen Stewart for a minute, and I think the boyfriend of goes back inside.
Yeah, he leaves.
Yeah, he leaves, and then it's just her sitting there like on like a stair or something like that. And then in the background, you see this like thing move, and like shit like that is always so. It's like the scene. It's like Hereditary level stuff, where like something move. Like, you have to like. It's like I Spy, like horror I Spy.
Yeah. But when you do that wrong, it's not. It doesn't work. Like, there's some later Halloween sequels where they were trying to do the Michael Myers lurking thing, and they just didn't pull it off. But so you can not do this right. And I've seen a lot of movies not do this right, and this is done right.
Yeah, I mean,
This
honestly,
is
I would put that part on in the same conversation as Hereditary, and then I think like a bigger behind out of focus. Just I don't. Do you consider it a jump scare?
What is it?
Strangers. When he's in the background of the
Oh
kitchen.
yeah, that's a jump scare.
Because it's not a
but
loud.
it plays out slower.
Yeah.
Yep.
But it still has that that level of energy where the whole audience goes, "Fuck."
That's interesting. That's a perfect comparison. I didn't think of that, but it feels the same.
Yeah, like you get
The
to
other
that
one's
high.
a different taste because it's a different kind of movie.
Yeah.
But
But the fact that you get something like that in a film that I think was severely overlooked, and it's not like a scare per minute type of movie. It's not
Right.
a Conjuring or something like that.
Nope.
Like it's not even in the same category as like an A24 film, because like even those you kind of go in with the assumption of like, okay, this is gonna be either really really weird, really really artsy, or really fucking scary.
Yep.
This is in like its own little bubble, and the fact that you get multiple scares. This is like the Golden Corral of like ghost scares
Wow.
in a movie. You got a little bit of everything.
Well,
You get the haunted mansion, kind of big
Right.
spooky white specter looking ghost.
you get an A24 kind of psychological backstory. You get with some intensity.
That murder scene feels like an A24 thing.
That murder scene feels like something Fincher would have done in Gone Girl.
Yeah, it feels something crazy, and then that scene just is one of those quiet fuck you, and then dropping the mason jar with the wine glass, wherever the fuck it was, dropping that glass. It was no bullshit. It was like, hey, here's a ghost.
Yeah.
There it is.
Totally. Well, you're gonna be highly disappointed. But so here's the solution to this movie. I feel ambivalent about even doing this because I hate that I know this now.
You're gonna
But, okay.
spoil the sauce.
So, well, no, I don't think it spoils it. I think it might even make it better. But so this movie is basically positing that there are ghosts and they can be interacted with or even steered depending on how receptive you are to them, right?
Right.
But mainly what's happening in this movie is happening in Kristen Stewart's mind, right? And I know this. And the reason I know this is because, and this is amazing that you can interpret an entire movie based off of 2 seconds. But if you took 2 seconds out of this movie, I wouldn't know how to explain this movie. The fact that 2 seconds are in there explains the entire movie. How mind blowing.
What are the 2 seconds that explain?
So it fades to white at the end, and it fades to black in every other scene. And that's the explanation for the movie. The reason why it's fading to white is because she's figured out how she's found herself. She's figured out how to move on from her dead brother and live her life, right? So she's cut off from the world. She's cut off from understanding. She can't figure out what's happening to her, and she can't figure out who even is a threat to her. Like, Ingo's clearly a threat to her. We all know it, and we think she should probably know it, but she doesn't. Right?
Right.
Like, she's pretty lost. So every time she's about to figure something out in this movie, if you go back and rewatch this movie, every time she's about to figure something out or something, like she's on the way to figure something out, the scene ends, sometimes abruptly, and it's always a fade to black, right? And then at the end, when she asks the question, so they do a ghost knocking thing, 2 knocks for no, 1 knock for yes. And she asks a series of questions. And at the end of the movie, she asks to her dead brother, is it you? And then she goes, is it just me? And then there's 1 knock, which is yes. And then she looks directly at us, right? And for the first time, she has a direct eye contact gaze with us. And then the movie fades to white. That's because she's figured it out. She's figured out that she's got to move on. And she's either going to indulge this and go crazy and die, or she's going to live her life. And she's choosing to live her life, which is a positive no, which is why it like flashes up to white. But
That doesn't ruin it at all.
but no, but I can do better than this too, because so this is why I'm getting a chill talking about it again. This is a weird movie.
This is a good movie.
Because here's the thing. Do you remember in Forbidden Planet? Do you remember we watched that?
Yeah.
Right? Do you remember that the guy was creating the force with his mind? So
Yeah.
like the electric monster would show
Little
up.
tiger thing.
As soon as he woke up, it vanished, right?
Uh-huh.
Kristen Stewart projected calling the police and getting Ingo arrested once she figured out what was happening or before she walked into that hotel room. And her projection was that her brother Lewis was going out and doing it, or she was projecting herself leaving the hotel room and going out and telling the police so that the police would know. That projection it's not a ghost. It's her representation of either sending herself out like a spirit or like Lewis going and doing it for her, right? Which is why we see it in that order. And the interesting thing is that there's a lot of ways that this movie throws you off, because there's a lot of shots where you're seeing ghosts but not from her perspective. Like maybe it's in the background, she's not seeing it. Definitely the Lewis part, right?
Yeah.
And I think those ghosts are real, but I think that she's not interacting with those ghosts. She's never been able to pick up a profitable conversation with the ghost, despite the fact like that whatever. But she gives us the clue in the middle of the movie. She says, "I always followed Lewis." Like Lewis said he was a medium. And then Ingo asks her, "Are you a medium?" And she goes, "Yes, I'm sort of a medium." Right? So she doesn't have it. She doesn't have the gift to do it. She would spend her whole life lingering around trying to figure out this one knock, two knock, once in a while Morse code, right? Whatever. And she knows it. Like subconsciously she knows it. So that's why at the end, and when you think about it, the movie even gives itself away in the title. Like she doesn't know who she is. So what's she shopping for? Herself. She's a personal shopper. She's searching for the person she is, right? Like
That's
it's
pretty cool,
right? like I mean, it makes sense once you figure out why it's fading to white at the end, which is the key to the whole kind of like mystery. But I don't think that ruins anything. I think that when you go back and you look at it, because I think the ghosts are real. I think the problem is that she's seeing them in really weird, faint, out of the corner of her eye, weird ways. And the reason that she's seeing it that way is that's all she's capable of. Her talent isn't to be a medium. Right. So if the movie had given us really vivid ghosts and like direct confrontation with ghosts, like it did with Lewis, like if she had turned around and seen him and talked to him, whatever, it would have betrayed its whole self, because she's not supposed to be a medium. That was her brother. She was trying to live her brother's life. Right. So she's going on to do her own life and not be a weird, mopey.
She did talk about how much she hated where she was at.
Right. Totally. So the ghosts are there. The question is how much they're helping her, and is there a malignant one? Because she does meet another ghost. That's not Lewis that's spewing the ectoplasm out and doing all the stuff.
Doesn't look like Lewis.
It doesn't look like Lewis at all. But the point of the movie is that she's shopping for her personhood, and she finally finds it. Right.
You know what's so great about this?
What's that?
Oh, hold on. Was there anything else we have to knock out?
No, that's it.
I think we fought for it pretty good.
We did.
Where does this film take place?
I have no idea. Paris, right?
Where do we have two listeners?
Oh, good segue. Let's do this.
When that hit me, I lit
let's
up like a
do
light bulb.
this.
So we had our Swiss listener.
Yes.
You know, we got a review from our American in
Switzerland.
In
Yes.
Switzerland review, and thank you very much. We were like, in fact, listenership blew up in Switzerland
Yes,
a little bit.
that's good.
France, still 2 listeners. So this episode's for you two.
Oh, good, nice. Dedicated.
There we go. We'll dedicate it to our two. Now, if you like this episode and you're still in France and you think, gee, Nick and George, I'm so glad I watched Personal Shopper. My life is just that much more complete. The quality of life has went up. 5-star review.
Yeah.
That's
sure.
gotta be what that's worth.
So let's pose a question.
Okay.
1 knock for yes, 2 knocks for no. Is this podcast great? 1 knock yes. So go to give us a 5-star review and just write 1 knock for yes.
That's what it is. 5-star review and just write 1 knock. We'll totally get it.
We appreciate it. Don't knock twice.
Yeah, don't knock.
Please don't knock twice.
Don't knock twice. And I have some other places in the world where we have some other
that's
listeners. So
right.
I'm gonna fucking Carmen San Diego this shit.
Let's do it.
I'm just gonna bounce from
Where
different
in the world
countries.
is Nicholas?
Yeah, where are we gonna call out the listeners? So this episode and I think I did it with the Swiss.
Yes.
Was I kept going for it until it happened.
Totally.
So I checked that off. It's sort of like, remember, was it the Daily Show or the Colbert Report where they would interview Know Your County? And then he would
It
check
was
it
Daily
off.
Show, and I love that.
Yeah, and it was always like the little tiniest like
know your
thing.
congressional district.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm doing that, but with the world.
Yep,
So to our
perfect.
2 French listeners, ball's in your court. Wait, what sport do they like? Soccer? Soccer ball?
Yeah, hell yeah.
Soccer ball. Oh yeah, because they just won the. See, I knew that. I knew they just won. You know, was it FIFA or whatever? I know they
Don't
won
even
that. So
bother.
we know a little bit. We know a little something. All right. Well, until next time, stay scared. Watch more movie. Bye.